Today I'd like to talk to you about blending ranges. Blending ranges are a new feature in Camtasia 2022, and as of this recording they are only available as part of the blend mode visual effect. If you've been using blend mode, you've probably noticed that beneath the mode itself and the invert checkbox, there's an intensity slider and a range selector. These two controls are closely related and they are the topic of this video. When you apply a blend mode effect to a media, that media turns into what we call a blend layer. Everything underneath that media is what we call the base layer. The blend layer is blended with the base layer, and that gives us what we call our result. The intensity slider governs how much the blend layer affects the result. If the intensity is 0, then the result contains only the base layer with no part of the blend layer. If the intensity is 100%, then the blend layer is fully blended with the base layer to create the result. To illustrate, here I have a video with the shipwreck in it. I place a rectangle on top of it, turn the rectangle orange, and then I apply the blend mode effect. As you can see, it uses the default blend mode of screen, and the blend layer is affecting the result very intensely. If we turn the intensity down to 0, we can see that the result is just the base layer, which is our video of a shipwreck. If we choose to increase the intensity, more and more of the orange rectangle will be blended into the result. Let's say, however, that we only really want our orange rectangle to affect bright pixels and not dark ones. To do that, we click on this button that looks like a little Venn diagram. This opens the range selector. The range selector lets us choose the pixels in the base layer that will be affected by the blend layer. The left edge of the range selector represents dark pixels, and the right edge represents light pixels. Let's grab the lower left handle and move it to the right a little bit. Right away we notice two things. The first is that the darkest pixels in the shipwreck video are no longer being affected by the blend layer. The second is that there's an obvious shelf where the blend layer stops and the base layer begins, and it doesn't necessarily look all that great. That's where the upper handle comes in. You can drag the upper slider further to the right, and that will create a ramp in intensity. Using these settings, very dark pixels below the lower threshold will be unaffected by the blend layer, pixels above this upper threshold will be blended 100%, and pixels between them will be blended more and more intensely as their brightness approaches the upper threshold. Three things we can observe before moving on. The first is that the top of the blending range is governed by the intensity slider. This is meant to help you visualize how the blending range and the intensity slider work together. The second is that once you've got your ramps and intensity how you want them, you can fine-tune the effect by clicking and dragging the middle of the blending range. The third is that all of these properties are totally automatable using animations in Camtasia. You can use animations to create transformations that are as subtle or as dramatic as you choose. Let's look at two more examples. Here I have a static image. It would be nice if there were a little more motion in it. Let's try to add some clouds. I place a video of clouds on top of my image, and I change the blend mode to normal. Now, ordinarily, a blend mode of normal means that the result contains only the blend layer with no base layer. But if we use a blending range, we can select only the parts of the image that we want to replace. Notice that there's a drop down here. By default, it's gray, and that means that the blending range is working on overall brightness. Let's change it to blue. Now let's push our bottom of our blending range up to here, and then we'll move the top handle all the way to the right. Now our clouds are only replacing pixels in the base layer that had a blue value that was very high. If you care about the roof looking weird, you can duplicate the image and place the duplicate above the blend layer, and then crop it so that only the parts of the result that you care about are showing through. For our last example, we're going to combine a couple of effects together. First, I'll put this video of an actor on my timeline, then I'll duplicate it. Next, I apply a blend mode to the duplicate, and I switch the blend mode to color. This causes the blend layer to control the color of the result. Now I add a color adjustment effect to the base layer. I turn the brightness and the contrast back to 0, and it looks normal again. Now we can change the blending range of the blend layer by pushing the upper threshold downward. This means that the blend layer will only affect darker pixels in the base layer. This lets the color adjustment shine through for brighter pixels, which gives us the result that only dark pixels are in color and brighter pixels are in black and white. Let's repeat that experiment with this image of some autumn leaves. Thanks for watching this video, and happy blending!